Morning, sir. Today, I, Moinak, along with my fellow group members, are going to discuss on the topic application of nucleic acid material in agriculture, healthcare, and environment. Nucleic acid is an important class of macromolecules found in all cells and viruses. The functions of nucleic acids have to do with the storage and expression of genetic information. DNA encodes the information the cell needs to make proteins. A related type of nucleic acid called RNA comes in different molecular forms that participate in protein synthesis. Nucleic acid is the term that we use to describe specific large molecules in the cells. So they are actually made up of polymers of strings of repeating units, and the two most famous nucleic acids that we have heard about are DNA and RNA. And nucleic acids in the cell act to actually store information. The cell encodes information much like we record on a tape into nucleic acids. So the sequence of these molecules in the polymer can convey, like make a protein, please replicate me, transfer me to the nucleus. The other amazing part about the nucleic acid is that they are very stable proteins. And so if we think about the need to convey genetic information from one cell to another, we would want a molecule that is very stable and doesn't fall apart on its own. And that's a major feature of nucleic acid. The name nucleic acid comes from the fact that they were first described because they actually had acidic properties, much like acids that we know right now. And the nucleic part comes from the fact that they were first isolated because they were found in the nucleus. And as we know that where the DNA, one of the types of nucleic acid that we have been talking about, is predominantly found.
Application of nucleic acid material in the field of healthcare. A nucleic acid test, also known as NAT, is a technique that is used to detect a particular nucleic acid sequence, which is then used to detect and identify a particular species or a subspecies of an organism, which is generally a bacterium or a virus that acts as a pathogen in our blood, tissue, urine, etc. Nucleic acid tests differ from other tests because they can detect DNA or RNA rather than detecting an antigen or an antibody. Detection of DNA and RNA allows us an early diagnosis of the disease, whereas detection of antigen or antibody requires some time before they start to disappear in the bloodstream. As the amount of DNA or RNA is very small, so in many nucleic acid tests, firstly we need to amplify the genetic material. Such type of techniques are known as nucleic acid amplification tests. Nucleic acid testing for blood screening. Annually worldwide, millions of people receive blood transfusions due to an accident or injury or any other diseases. Although in every center, policy and testing are done to ensure pure blood to the victims, but there is always a risk in taking transfused blood because of the various blood-borne diseases like hepatitis B, HIV and hepatitis C. Lab screening of this transfused blood for various infectious diseases is a safety measure in protecting the victims and spreading of the diseases further. The age-old method for blood screening is known as immunoassay, which detects various antibodies and viruses or viral antigens. In this technique, there is an interval between the donor's exposure to a virus until antibodies are produced against the virus, known as the window period. In this window period, there is a high chance that the risk of infection in the donated blood can be missed by the immunoassay testing. These undetected window period detections are generally responsible for most of the transfused diseases. Nucleic acid testing shortens this window period, thus providing the labs much more time for the detection of the viral infections. Nucleic acid testing in screening for genetic disorders. Nucleic acid testing is being extensively used for prenatal screening and carrier screening for genetic disorders. The aim of prenatal screening is to detect birth defects such as neural tube defects, chromosomal abnormalities like Down syndrome, and other conditions such as thalassemia and cystic fibrosis. Carrier screening, the testing of parents in preparation for pregnancy, is used to identify genetic mutations that could cause serious inherited disorders. Mitochondrial diseases can be caused by genetic mutation in the mitochondrial DNA or in the nuclear DNA. The genetic basis of mitochondrial disease was first discovered in the late 1980s. Since then, mitochondrial disease diagnosis has continued to evolve with improvement in NAT technology. Now, with nucleic acid testing technologies such as sequencing and deletion analysis of an increasing number of individual nuclear genes linked to mitochondrial disease, genome-wide microarray analysis for chromosomal copy number abnormalities, and mitochondrial DNA whole genome sequence analysis have greatly helped in understanding and diagnosing mitochondrial diseases. Nucleic acid testing in predicting cancer and guiding cancer treatment. With improved sequencing capability and knowledge of DNA, traditional descriptions of cancer, such as by the organ of primary occurrence, are being suppressed by a new classification framework that focuses on the genetic abnormalities and molecular rearrangements of malignant tumors. The genetic level changes may consist of mutations, deletion or addition of DNA, or changes in the number of copies of particular DNA sequences in cancer cells. Nucleic acid testing helps in identification of genetic variations and predicts predisposition to cancer, alters diagnostic categories, enhances treatment strategies, enables early deletion and prevention, and improves outcomes for cancer patients. Nucleic acid testing in detecting infectious diseases. Nucleic acid testing is extensively used to detect and identify organisms for proper diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment of diseases. Diagnostic infectious diseases by nucleic acid of the causative agent in clinical specimens has been found to be more rapid and specific as compared to the other methods of diagnosis such as cultural or immunological methods. In virology, in addition to detecting the viruses, nucleic acid testing helps in identification of genotypes and subtypes determining resistance to particular antibiotics. These applications help to provide guidance on treatment. In bacteriology, nucleic acid testing has also been applied to resistance testing, the detection of infection due to fastidious bacteria, and the detection of bacterial infection after antibiotics has been administered.
Nucleic acid vaccines represent a new approach to the control of infectious agents. These novel vaccines are both easy to construct and produce. Recombinant DNA technology is used to clone DNA sequences, the protein or proteins to be used as immunogens into an eukaryotic expression vector. The constructed plasmid is grown in bacteria and purified. The purified plasmid DNA is then directly inoculated into the animal to be vaccinated. The expression of the plasmid DNA by cells into the inoculated host produces the protein that raises the immune responses. Direct inoculations of vaccine DNAs into animals generate antibody, cytolytic T cells, CTL, and protective immunoresponses. These impressive nanogram levels of DNA expressed proteins can raise immune responses. Initial skepticism about the potential of this new technology reflected the disbelief that such small amounts of protein could initiate immune responses. Protective immune responses can be generated by skin, muscle, and intravenous inoculations of DNA. Immunizations can be accomplished by injecting DNA in saline or by using a gene gun to propel DNA coated gold beads into cells. The raised responses have good longevity, with even single doses of DNA having the potential to elicit long-lasting CTL and antibody responses. In May 1994, the World Health Organization convened a meeting in Geneva to review the early findings of DNA vaccines. On the second day of the meeting, a vote was taken to name the new technology. It was a split vote between genetic immunization, polynucleotide vaccines, and nucleic acid vaccines. The majority of the participants voted for the use of the term nucleic acid vaccines, with subterms DNA vaccines or RNA vaccines. The name nucleic acid vaccines was chosen to reflect the new technology not being designed to insert DNA into the germline of vaccines. If this novel form of vaccination were to achieve general acceptance, the perception would need to be that this was a vaccine, not a therapy or modifying genetic information. DNA vaccines. DNA vaccines are generated by inserting a gene encoding antigens into a bacteria-derived plasmid, which needs to be controlled by a powerful promoter, in most cases the CVM promoter. DNA plasmids are replicated in bacteria, which can be selected based on antibiotic resistance mediated by genes carrying resistant markers using the prokaryotic origin of replication. Additionally, DNA vaccines can affect not only humoral immunity but also cellular immunity. Mechanism of action. DNA vaccines can induce both immunal and cellular responses, and DNA can be delivered through a variety of routes, including intramuscular IM, intradermal ID, mucosal and transdermal delivery. For DNA vaccines, after internalization, the DNA is transferred to the nucleus for transcription and then translated into the cytoplasm. Regarding antigen presentation, the following three procedural mechanisms are proposed. Number 1. After internalization, plasmid DNA is expressed by somatic cells, myocytes, and presented to CD8 T cells through major histocompatibility complex MHC class 1 complexes on the somatic cell. Number 2. Antigen presentation relies on professional antigen presenting cells APCs for intense dendritic cells DCs that are transferred by the plasmid DNA at the injection site and then present the expressed antigen to T cells through MHC class 1 and 2 complexes. Number 3. Professional APCs phagocytose plasmid transferred somatic cells, resulting in cross-priming and presentation of antigens to both CD4 plus and CD8 plus T cells, even in skin cells, which allow the direct presentation of antigens. A gene gun can deliver DNA directly into the Langerhans cells, and cross-presentation from keratinocytes is probably the main route. What are the advantages of DNA vaccines? Because of a number of distinct advantages, DNA vaccine can offer over existing vaccination techniques. The techniques has drawn a lot of interest. It would not be underdeveloped if it didn't offer decent solutions to problems we face with immunizations today. Firstly, DNA vaccines do not contain any actual infectious agent, whether dead or alive. One of the classic methods of vaccination is the introduction of a live but weakened version of a pathogen into a person. This has proven effective thus far, but does not offer some distinct safety concerns. The risks of reversion, for example, where the vaccination strain mutates and become virulent, is one such issue, as is the fact that these vaccines can safely be used in people who are pregnant, elderly, or suffering from any one of the number of chronic diseases. These concerns are not relevant to DNA vaccines, which could potentially be given to virtually anyone regardless of health status, safety, and without any risks of reversion. DNA vaccines also offer advantages in terms of their production. One tested for efficiency and safety, DNA vaccine can be generated large volumes at a much lower cost than some traditional vaccine types. The DNA vaccine in question would also be easier to transfer, as there are no particular storage requirements. Now, what are the disadvantages of DNA vaccines? At present, there are still some obstacles limiting the potential use of DNA vaccines. This includes the fact that this type of vaccination would be limited to pathogens with distinct protein immunogen. Some pathogen possesses non-protein immunogens, bacteria with sugarcase for example. DNA vaccines also present a slight risk of potentially disrupting normal cellular process. This has yet to be shown as per major concern. However, there is a large chance that the introduction of foreign DNA into the body could affect cells' normal protein expression pathways. Two concerns regarding the effectiveness of vaccine itself revolve around the body's reaction to the vaccine. The first is the chance of an immune response against the DNA itself, or the DNA delivery vector, which could defeat the point of the vaccination as a whole. If such a reaction were to occur, no protein immunogens would be expressed, and there would be no immune responses to these immunogens, and hence no immunity against the pathogen in question. Secondly, there is a chance that the body develops resistance or tolerance towards the protein the vaccine introduced. This would again defeat the purpose of vaccine, which is to simulate a large immune response against the injection. RNA vaccines. Currently, there are two widely acknowledged forms of mRNA vaccines, namely non-amplifying mRNA and self-amplifying mRNA, which are classified due to the difference in mechanisms. In terms of structure, non-amplifying mRNA vaccines mainly contain 5 critical elements for the life cycle and expression. The cap, which is a 7-methyl guanosine residue, M7G, bound to the 5' end of the RNA transcript via a 5' triphosphate bond with a nucleotide. A 5' untranslated region, 5' UTR, and sits immediately upstream of the translation initiation codon and opens reading frame ORF encoding the gene of interest GOIA, 3' untranslated region, 3' UTR, and a tail of 100 to 250 adenosine residue poly A tail. Among these elements, the cap structure is essential for stabilizing mRNA against exonucleotic decay and making translation efficient. Similarly, details of a poly A tail also affect mRNA stabilization and translation. While the untranslated region UTRs are recognized by the translational machinery ribosome, in comparison with replication-deficient mRNA construct, a self-amplifying mRNA was developed to extend the duration and amplitude of GOI expression. In addition to the 5 essential elements mentioned above, a self-amplifying RNA not only encodes antigens but also has a sequence of similar to that of a replication-competent virus, allowing it to replicate in cells and increase protein expression. For example, a self-amplifying RNA derived from an alpha virus genome contains a non-structural gene, a subgenomic promoter, and a variable GOI that replicates the coding sequence for the viral structure proteins. Mechanism of action. RNA vaccines can effectively carry antigen encoding mRNA to APCs directly in vivo. When antigen encoding mRNA are delivered into APCs in efficient way, that is via nanocarriers, the mRNAs can be released and translated into relative antigenic proteins in the cytoplasm. Then they are processed into peptide epitopes, which are subsequently combined with the MHC class 1 via a cross-presentation pathway. In this pathway, the activation of CD8 T plus cells results from the transfer of MHC peptides complexes to the cell surface of APCs, which leads to the corresponding immune response. The pharmacodynamic activity of both native mRNA and IVT mRNA occurs in the cytoplasm. However, native mRNA is transcribed from DNA into the nucleus and cross the nuclear membrane into the cytoplasm, while IVT mRNA enters the cytoplasm from the extracellular sources. One delivered into the cytoplasm, IVT mRNA will follow the same mechanism that regulates the stability and translation of endogenous mRNA. Therefore, mature protein products which contain antigens are likely to cause pathogen-specific humoral and cellular immune responses. Advantages of RNA vaccines. RNA vaccines, the simplest nucleic acid vaccines, are a promising alternative platform for vaccine development. As for advantages, RNA vaccines only encode the gene of interest, which shows simplicity. Secondly, because mRNA can be easily and inexpensively mass-produced in vitro, the low-price makes RNA vaccines an appealing method of treatment. Third, RNA vaccines have no risks of genome integration due to degradations in vitro, which may activate latent oncogenes. In addition, there is no need to design expression vectors for delivery. Nucleic acid vaccines for cancer treatment. One of the earliest clinical trials on cancer treatment using DNA vaccines were conducted in 1998. This trial, specific for prostate cancer, used a prostate membrane antigen at the cancer antigen as well as adenoviral vector and GM-CSF as an adjuvant. Since then, the results of certain number of clinical trials have indicated that DNA vaccines used to treat cancer are well tolerated and do not cause severe adverse reactions. Additionally, the cost effectiveness of DNA vaccines is considerable and repeated vaccination can be performed for long-term protection. The DNA vaccines that have entered the clinical trial stage for several cancers will be described below. Breast cancer. The Mamaglobin A (MMSC) vaccine can induce anti-tumor immunity in breast cancer. The vaccine encoding MMSC can generate a MMA-specific CD8 plus T immune cell response. A phase 1 clinical trial evaluating the MMSC vaccine observed that the vaccine had immune activity in patients with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Some research institutions have conducted phase 1 and phase 2 trials using DNA vaccines encoding human prostatic acid phosphate. In one trial, the subjects were 22 patients with biochemical recurrence for prostate cancer. After receiving treatment, 3 patients developed PEPI-specific IFNGC CD8 T cells and 9 patients exhibited proliferate of PEPI-specific CD4 plus and CD8 plus T cells, which suggested that the DNA vaccine had biological activity that could induce an anti-tumor immune response. In addition, no obvious adverse reaction occurred after vaccination, and the serum prostate-specific antigen doubling time (PSA-DT) of several patients increased. These results illustrated that the safety of DNA vaccine and suggested that it might have an impact on the tumor growth rate. Cervical cancer. In a phase 1 clinical trial, the highly optimized DNA vaccine VGX3100 encoding the human papillomavirus 16 and 18 E6/E7 antigens was tested. This trial evacuated 18 post-resection patients with grade 2 grade 3 cervical intraepithelial neoplasia which received a 3-dose regimen via 3 intramuscular injections. An IFN gamma ELISpot assay found that 78% of the subjects had an increased T helper cell 1 bicellular immune response. In the difference dose group, the average peak value of the T cell response induced by VGX3100 was 642 to 1458 SFU per 106 ppmcs. The results showed that the vaccine induced strong and extensive cellular immunity. In addition, no serious adverse reactions, grade 3, grade 4 adverse reactions or injection site reactions were observed, which showed that the safety of VGX3100. What are nucleic acid vaccines and how they could be turned against COVID-19? All vaccines work by exposing the body of molecules from the target pathogens to trigger an immune response, but the method of exposure varies. Here's how DNA and RNA vaccines work. Nucleic acid vaccines use genetic material from a disease-causing virus or bacteria to simulate an immune response against it. Depending on the vaccine, the genetic material could be DNA or RNA. In both cases, it provides the instruction for making a specific protein from the pathogen, which the immune system will recognize as foreign. When one is inserted into host cell, the genetic material is read by the cell's own protein-making machinery and used to manufacture antigens which then trigger an immune response. To trigger an immune response, many vaccines put a weakening or inactive germ into our bodies, not mRNA vaccines. Instead, mRNA vaccines use mRNA created in the laboratory to teach our cells how to make a protein, or even just a piece of a protein that triggers an immune response system inside of our body. The immune response, which produces antibody is what produces us from getting infected if the real virus enters our body. First, COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are given to the upper arm muscle. The mRNA will enter the muscle cells and instruct the cell machinery to produce a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. The spike protein is found on the surface of the virus that causes COVID-19. After the protein piece is made, our cells break down the mRNA and remove it. Next, our cells display the spike protein piece on the surface. Our immune system recognizes that the spike protein does not belong there. This triggers our immune system to produce antibodies and activate other immune cells to fight off what it thinks is an infection. This is what our body might do to fight off the infection if we got sick with COVID-19. At the end of the process, our bodies have learned how to protect against future infection from the virus that causes COVID-19. The benefit of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, like all vaccines, is that those vaccinated gain is protection without ever having the risks or potentially serious consequences of getting sick with COVID-19. Any temporary discomfort experienced after getting the vaccine is a natural part of the process and an indication that the vaccine is working. How do nucleic acid vaccine trigger immunity? In the case of DNA vaccine, a piece of DNA encoding the antigen is first inserted into a bacterial plasmid. This is a circular piece of DNA used by a bacterium to store and share genes which may benefit its survival. A bit like a computer flash drive, plasmid can replicate independently to the main chromosomal DNA and provide a simple tool for transferring genes between cells. Because of this, they are already widely used within the field of genetic engineering. DNA plasmid carrying the antigen are usually injected into the muscle, but the key challenge is getting them to cross the Pupil cell. This is an essential step because the machinery which enables the antigen to be translated into protein is located inside cells. Various technologies are being developed to aid this process, such as electroporation, where short pulses of electric current are used to create temporary pores in patients' cell membranes, a gene gun which uses helium to propel DNA into skin cells, and encapsulating the DNA in nanoparticles which are designed to fuse with the cell membrane. RNA vaccines are encode the antigen of interest in messenger RNA, mRNA, or self-replifying RNA, molecular templates used by cellular factories to produce proteins. Because of this translatory nature, there is zero risk of integrating with our own genetic material. The RNA can be injected by itself, encapsulating within nanoparticles, such as Pfizer mRNA based on COVID vaccine is, or driven into cells using some of the same techniques being developed for DNA vaccines. Once the DNA or RNA is inside the cell and it starts producing antigens, these are then displayed on the surface, which they can be detected by the immune system, triggering a response. This response includes T cells which seek out and destroy infected cells, as well as antibody producing B cells and helper T cells which support the antibody production.
Now let me discuss about the emerging clinical applications of nucleic acid. Attempts to employ nucleic acid in gene therapy have become commonplace in recent years. At the same time, however, the study of nucleic acid has revealed remarkable properties of DNA and RNA molecules that could make them attractive therapeutic agents, independent of their well-known abilities to encode biologically active proteins. Now would seem to be a good time to consider alternative uses of nucleic acids that do not rely on virus-based vectors or even on gene transfer. Accordingly, the strategies explored in this prospective series exploit a number of different facets of RNA and DNA biochemistry. Certain nucleic acid molecules can bind to and inhibit the function of target proteins, while others provide a source of tumor antigens, and still others can perform catalysis. The Perspective series offers an update on progress in this field. Nucleic acids that bind to target molecules. The concept of using nucleic acids to bind to and inhibit the activities of target proteins grew out of early HIV gene therapy studies that employed RNA ligands termed decoys to competitively inhibit the activities of essential HIV proteins and in the process block viral replication. Similarly, double-stranded DNA decoys have been employed to squelch the activities of variety of transcription factors. The ability to modify nucleic acids to enhance the stability and bioavailability of decoys and aptamers should allow these nucleic acids based therapeutics to be administered in a manner more than traditional drug delivery than like gene therapy. Nucleic acids that ensure tumor antigens. The field of cancer immunotherapy has recently undergone a revolution with the discovery that vaccine with tumor antigen loaded dendritic cells can elicit protective immunity in animals challenged with tumors. This observation has led to many investors to attempt to define the most effective tumor antigen for immunotherapy. Michel and Nair describe recent efforts to employ total tumor RNA as a source of antigen for such vaccination strategies. As the authors argue, one potential advantage of this approach is that such antigens can be obtained from even a few tumor cells taken from patient because standard molecular techniques allows RNA isolated from these cells to be amplified without limit. There are also research going on for future clinical prospects for this new nucleic acid based vaccination strategy. Nucleic acids that perform catalysis. The discovery by Check and Altman that certain RNAs can perform catalysis dramatically changed how scientists viewed the role of nucleic acids in nature. The observation that certain catalytic RNAs, termed ribozymes, can be made to be specifically cleave or splice target RNAs has engendered how much excitement about the potential therapeutic utility of these molecules. More recently, however, much progress has been made in development of synthetic nuclease-resistant ribozymes for therapeutic applications. In addition, though the use of in vitro evolution techniques, DNA-based enzymes have also been obtained that cleave target RNAs. In this perspective series, Usman and Blatt describe recent advantages in the use of synthetic ribozymes in animals and the clinic. And Kakigian discusses the potential utility of DNA enzymes as therapeutic agents. Nucleic acid based microbial diagnostic techniques. Nucleic acid based diagnostics detect the presence of pathogen either by directly detecting the presence of DNA or RNA nucleic acids in the host or by first amplifying the pathogen DNA or RNA. Nucleic acid based diagnostics are a standard central laboratory technique, although simplified nucleic acid based diagnostics that may be useful in resource poor settings are emerging. Nucleic acid based diagnostics detect specific nucleic acids, that is DNA or RNA. In case of infectious diseases, nucleic acid based diagnostics detect DNA or RNA from infective organisms. For non-infectious diseases, nucleic acid based diagnostics may be used to detect a specific gene or the expression of a gene associated with the disease. Some common nucleic acid based diagnostic techniques are mentioned in the table given in the slide. Nucleic acid medicine. Nucleic acid medicines utilize nucleic acid which refer to substances such as DNA and RNA that control genetic information as drugs. This allows targeting of molecules such as mRNA and miRNA that cannot be targeted with traditional low molecular weight drugs and antibody medicines, and there is a great expectation of these drugs as next generation pharmaceuticals. Active research is being conducted globally as it is expected to lead the creation of drugs which were previously intractable. Now let me discuss some characteristics of nucleic acid medicines. Nucleic acid medicines is a next generation drug recovery technology with a completely different mechanism of action than traditional pharmaceutical products. It also features the ability to be manufactured easily at moderate sized molecules and the potential to exhibit efficacy and safety that surpasses those of antibody medicines. Due to these features, there is an expectation for nucleic acid medicines to be applied in cancer and hereditary disorders which were previously difficult to treat, as well as in illness such as influenza and viral infections. Types of nucleic acid medicines. Nucleic acid medicines, which utilizes DNA and RNA, include those that target nucleic acids at the stage where protein is synthesized from genome DNA, such as mRNA and miRNA, and those that target protein. Information regarding all the types of nucleic acid medicine is provided in a table attached to the slide.
DNA is the main genetic material of all cellular organisms. Preserving DNA itself is one way of preserving germplasm resources. The development of biotechnology and molecular biology makes it possible for us to regulate or even control the plant traits by using DNA sequence information such as structure, function, and mechanism. DNA technologies based on DNA molecular markers, transgenic technology, and gene expression have been widely used in agricultural production, which have showed great potential in improving agricultural yields and quality, reducing the loss that various biotic and abiotic stress cause, promoting the utilization of germplasm resource, improving breeding efficiency, and strengthening the regulation of plant growth. These modern DNA technologies with high feasibility and necessity are important measures to guarantee the sustainable development of agriculture. Despite the agriculture including plant and animal production, DNA technologies in these fields share the same technical purpose and type. There were many reports about the application of various DNA technologies in agriculture production till now, and DNA technologies have been constantly developed and updated, which makes it difficult to introduce every DNA technique. Therefore, we will mainly introduce the agricultural application of DNA molecular marker and transgenic technology in this PPT. Since the advance of first generation molecular marker technology, restricted fragment length polymorphism, also known as RFLP, and the polymerase chain reaction PCR in 1980, various DNA markers were developed and used in biology research such as DNA random amplified polymorphic DNA, RAPD, single nucleotide polymorphism, SNP, amplified fragment length polymorphism, AFLP, and sequence related amplified polymorphism, SRAP, etc. Compared with the traditional morphological markers, cytological markers, and biochemistry markers, DNA markers have much more information and higher polymorphism and can work without the influence of plant organs, developmental stages, and various environmental factors, which have been widely used in identification of crop varieties, conservation and evaluation of plant germplasm resource, analysis of genetic diversity and evolution, construction of genetic maps, cloning of important agronomic trait genes, and even molecular mark assisted breeding. Cultivator identification and analysis of seed purity. For a long time, plant cultivator identification and seed purity tests were mainly based on phenotypic traits. However, the rapidly increasing crop cultivators and close evolutionary relationship among some cultivators and the confuse of varietal names and local names. In addition, the phenomenon of homonym and synonym have been making it more and more difficult to collect, classify, and conserve the plant resources. The incompetence of traditional plant cultivator identification technique calls for a far more stable, simple, and accurate technique. DNA molecular marker has a high specificity, selectivity, simplicity, and accuracy can be reflected in the differences in DNA level without environmental impacts and thus has great advantages in seed purity identification. The DNA
molecular marker technology has been used in identification of cultivator and seed variety of rice, wheat, maize, cotton, and grape. In order to better the apply of DNA markers to the cultivator identification, the conversion of DNA fingerprint to the available and convenient information which can be directly used in cultivator identification practice is crucial. However, in early days, the lack of available technique or measure make it difficult to convert the DNA marker fingerprint to the easy access information, which lead to the research findings on cultivator identification were barely used in agriculture production. Heterosis prediction. Heterosis prediction can greatly reduce the blindness and increase the pertinence of breeding. It is important to improve breeding efficiency and shorten the breeding process. By DNA marker technology, we can detect the positive markers or positive locus related to heterosis in any period or organ and then predict the heterosis based on heterozygosity of these locus. This technique overcome the deviation of genetic distance based heterosis prediction. In addition, DNA marker overcome the shortcoming of isozyme based heterosis prediction in which it has too much restriction to be widely used. In recent years, the use of molecular markers has made some progress in the prediction of heterosis in maize, rice, cotton, rape, and other crops. For example, Percy et al. 2006 found that heterosis of boll number and weight of single cotton was significantly related to the genetic existence of molecular marker. Solomon et al. 2007 reported that the genetic distance of molecular marker has greatly positive correlation with the heterosis of grain weight.
Construction of genetic map. The genetic map is the chromosome linear linkage map that uses the chromosome recombination and exchange rate as the relative length and genetic markers as the main body. The genetic map constructed by DNA molecular marker technique give us chance to analyze the linkage relation of the genetic loci at the molecular level. The genetic loci we can get from the genetic map are far more than that we can get from the traditional methods constructed based on morphology, physiology, or biochemistry. In addition, the construction cycle is shorter and the density of markers is higher compared with the traditional ways. In recent years, with the rapid development of molecular marker technology, the genetic map for most crops have been drawn. Most of the field and economic crops have finished the construction of high density and even saturated genetic linkage maps, and this will be of great help to understand the information of genomic composition and structure and will finally benefit to the breeding practice. Gene mapping, cloning, and marker assisted breeding. Molecular marker can link to the target phenotypic traits loci by which we can locate the important agronomic traits related genes and provide the convenience for marker assisted breeding and map based cloning of these genes. On the basis of precise location of the target gene by using DNA molecular markers, breeders can take advantage of them which closely linked to or co-separated with the target genes by which they can identify the existence of the target gene in breeding offspring. Molecular assisted breeding makes up for the shortcomings of the traditional field selective breeding method, which is time consuming, low efficiency, and inaccurate. At present, molecular assisted breeding technologies have been widely used in crop breeding and has developed a number of new crop cultivars and lines. Gene map based cloning is a technology that is suitable for gene cloning, which is developed on the basis of DNA molecular markers and marker genetic linkage map. Based on accurate location of the target gene by molecular markers and use them that are closely linked to the target genes as probes to screen genomic library, we can clone the large fragments of the target gene. Map-based cloning techniques has great advantages for novel gene cloning and has been successfully used in the separation and cloning of excellent agronomic growth and development of genes in rice and maize. Application of gene expression information in agricultural production. Traditionally, the growth and development condition and the phenological period of crops are the main reference basis for the agricultural production. These information are mainly collected through observing and recording the phenotypic trait of crops. This method has played important roles in the traditional agricultural production that is intuitive, simple, and effective. However, the appearance of phenotypic traits always lags and cannot feed back the real growth and development situation of crops timely and accurately. Also, the expression of gene is always earlier than the appearance of phenotype. So, monitor and diagnose the growth and development status of crops at gene level makes it possible to predict the unfavorable changes or harm before it happens and then take appropriate measures in advance. The development of modern molecular biology technique provides extremely rich and even redundant gene information to the researchers. Even though gene expression profile has been widely used to address the relationship between ecologically influenced or disease phenotypes and the cellular expression patterns, the information is mainly limited to the laboratory experience. Thus, it is necessary to apply the crop growth and development related gene information to agricultural production. So, the techniques or methods that are able to convert this gene information to convenient and easy access information are urgent. In the era of molecular biology, there are high necessity and feasibility to apply the gene information to agricultural production. People can use genetic information to observe or monitor the growth status of crops and provide guidelines for the field management by which we can improve the efficiency of agricultural measures such as irrigation and fertilization and other important growth process of crops. Crop phenology. Plant phenology is the appear time of various iconic morphological characteristics such as seed germination, leaf blossom, fruit growth, and development status in plant life cycle. It is the reaction of growth, development, and activity of plant response to climate. By observing these phenological events, we can grasp the seasonal variation of crop, guide crop planting, cultivation management, and pest control. However, observing and recording the phenological period need to spend a lot of time, workforce, and resources. Also, the data obtained is limited by the cultivar, climate, geographical environment, and agricultural operations, and many other factors. Thus, phenology and phenological period is different in different years. Last year record for reference for the following year is not precise enough. So, the current situation, that is the phenological events, cannot be used to accurately depict phenophases, and it calls for the advent of a more accurate means of depicting phenology. When the changes of external environment cause the advance or delay of phenology, the expression of related genes at the molecular level invariably precedes the emergence of phenological phenomenon. Therefore, we can timely and reasonably judge and implement farming operation. As more and more genes related to crop growth and development genes has been excavated, the researchers were able to describe different phenological events in different crops at different stages systematically, precisely, and quickly. This will enable the use of gene information to describe phenology and take appropriate management measures. This strategy promotes the practice of using gene information in agricultural production.
Prediction of crop growth status under stress. Gene expression information can also be used to predict the effects of environmental stress on the growth and development of crops, which is convenient for the people to take appropriate management measures. Crops sometimes suffer various biotic or abiotic stresses in agricultural production, resulting in reduction in agronomical yield, falling off in quality, and will affect the agricultural output. In the past, people grasped the growth state under stress through the phenotypic traits of crop. Nevertheless, these phenotypic traits require a certain amount of time, and the effect of some stress on crop is difficult to observe from the outside. More often, when people have observed the phenotypic traits of crop under stress and then take measures, it is often difficult to bring the plant back to normal state. Therefore, it is not the suitable way and measure to guide the remedial or recovery of crops under stress through the phenotype observation of the growth state of crop under adversity. There are many genes of crop involved in transcriptional response to stress such as drought, high salinity, or low temperature. The expression level of these genes increased or decreased affected by the stress condition. Therefore, through the expression information of these resistance related genes, researchers will be able to know whether the crop encounter unfavorable growth conditions and take timely remedial measures. Krasensky and Junak in 2012 studied the expression patterns of stress-inducible genes in drought, extreme temperatures, and salinity stress. The beginning, end, and changes in the expression of genes related to plant signaling events involved in response to environmental stress such as salicylic acid, jasmonic acid, and abscisic acid and calcium ion reflect the growth state of crop under stress. Research about expression information of gene in different tissues and different developmental stages under different environmental conditions will provide support for the prediction of growth state of crop under the stress at the molecular level. These researches not only contribute to complementing understanding of metabolic adjustments of plants under stress, but also play an important role in increasing agricultural production, reducing the consumption of resources. Evaluation of the effects of fertilizers. In the past, determining fertilization time, fertilization types, and the amount of fertilizers in agriculture production are implemented based on crop growth and phenology, generally is experience operation, and would be greatly affected by geographical and environmental conditions. Thus, it is undoubtedly difficult to accurately guide the effect of fertilization. These practices not only failed to achieve the best benefits of the fertilizer application but also resulted in the waste of fertilizer and environmental pollution. Therefore, how to invest a reasonable input of nutrient at the same time guarantee the quality and yield of crops, and how to choose the more effective fertilizers and more scientific fertilizing methods are issues of concern. Modern DNA technology makes it possible for the people to understand the effect of fertilization promoting plant growth and development at the molecular level. Through the analysis of expression level of some gene such as glutamine synthetase and glutamine dehydrogenase, the time of these genes reached the highest expression level was 6 hours earlier after foliar fertilization compared with soil fertilization, and gene expression levels were higher. These results partly revealed the reasons why foliar fertilization take effect quickly. The use of genetic information not only can accurately clarify the influence of conventional fertilization on crop growth and development, also can more accurately assess the use efficiency of fertilizer, the work speed of different fertilizing methods such as foliar and soil fertilizer, the fertility of different fertilizers, and so on. Gene expression information can reflect the metabolism and transport of fertilizers in crop. So, through analysis of spatiotemporal expression of related gene, we can obtain the gene information on the response of crops in different kinds and concentration of fertilizer in different growth periods. On this basis, combined with the status of crop growth and development, we can establish more scientific and reasonable fertilization measures in different growth stages, such as the period of fertilization, the type of fertilization, and the amount of fertilizer. These measures will greatly save fertilizer dosage, reduced investment in agriculture, increase the income of farmers, and reduce the environmental pollution. Crop cultivation, along with many farming operations, each farming operation will cause the corresponding changes in the gene expression at the DNA level. The usage of DNA technology to detect such changes at the molecular level can help us to understand regulation mechanism of farming operation on crop growth and development. Now, there were more and more studies about the influence of various cultivation operations on the expression level of related genes. The expression level of some genes of grape increased and expressed early because of the treatment with abscisic acid. Similarly, branch girdling makes the high expression level of citrus genes about 1 week in advance. According to soil characteristics and the need of crop growth development, we can use gene information to manage every growth stage of crop and decide the consumption of various agricultural material and which cultivation measures to use. Thus, we can make full use of the potential of soil and crop, achieve the best results from the field management technology, meet the needs of crop growth, and reduce agricultural materials input, thereby reduce the material consumption, increase commercial profits, protect the ecological environment, and release the sustainable development of agriculture. In total, plant growth and development are controlled by the programmed expression of suites of genes in response to exogenous or endogenous cues. Hence, there is a need to generate genome-wide expression data from a range of tissues or development stages in order to understand and relate phenotypic traits and gene expression profiles, and data at the transcriptome and epigenome level can contribute greatly to the application of gene information in agriculture. Applications of transgenic technology in agriculture. Transgenic technology can improve accurately crop quality and yield compared with traditional crop. All traits like yield, stress resistance, including disease resistant, insect resistant, cold resistant, and herbicide resistant, and nutritional quality of genetically modified crops will be significantly heightened. The commercialization of genetically modified crops, dramatically lowering the cost of agriculture and bring continuously a great deal of benefits of economic, environmental, and social in the world. Prevention and control of agricultural disease and pest. Transgenic technology is widely used to control the agricultural disease and insect pest, reduce the cost of agricultural production, improve the effect of disease and insect control, reduce pesticide pollution, and increase crop production. thus brought new vigor and hope in the prevention and control of crop diseases and pests. The research and promotion of transgenic herbicide resistant crop has been dominant in the transgenic crop. To date, there are many herbicide resistant cultivars were created by transgenic technology in cotton, maize, soybeans and rape. Transgenic insect resistant crop is one of the most important kinds of transgenic crop. In the past 10 years, transgenic insect resistant crop such as cotton, maize and potato have achieved fruitful results. In recent years, plant disease resistance genetic engineering has achieved many breakthroughs and has bred many kinds of transgenic disease resistant crop such as the fusarium wilt and verticillium wilt resistance transgenic cotton. Currently, insect resistance, disease resistance, herbicide resistant transgenic maize, cotton, potato, and soybean have entered the commercialization stage and have a larger cultivation area. Quality improvement. Transgenic technique can be applied to improve the qualities of crop, including protein content, amino acid composition, starch composition, polysaccharide compounds, and lipid in seeds and other storage organs, tubers, tuberous roots, bulbs, etc. Finally, improve food quality, increase nutrition, and ameliorate health function and processing performance, etc. Enhanced resistance. Transgenic technology is also widely applied in breeding new cultivars possessed high drought, salt and cold resistance. The rice, which introduced into seed repeat binding factor CBF, possess significant resistance to abiotic stress. The offspring of rice introduced into Arabidopsis thaliana dehydration responsive element binding DREB gene exhibited better growth status than non-transgenic plants under drought stress. The tobacco introduced into S-adenosyl methionine decarboxylase SAMDC gene grew well under abiotic stress. A bacterial mannitol 1-phosphate dehydrogenase gene was transferred into tomato, which showed a significant resistance to the low temperature stress. Transgenic crops have been extended into many aspects, such as biotic and abiotic stress tolerant, fertility, yield, and quality improvement. Furthermore, some techniques have been or are being applied in crop breeding program. Molecular design breeding. In recent years, molecular design breeding developed on basis of the combination of the DNA technology and cultivar improvement has gradually attracted people's attention. Before the field experiments, molecular design breeding would integrate the information related breeding program on the computer and simulate the implementation plan, thus considered more factors more comprehensively and put forward the best strategies of selection of parental and progeny to enhance predictability in the breeding process, thereby substantially improve breeding efficiency. Molecular design breeding will greatly improve the theory and technology of plant breeding and make the traditional breeding technology more efficiently and targeted. At present, molecular design breeding have achieved certain effects in wheat, rice, soybean and rape. Molecular design breeding is a new and highly integrated research field. We need to use multiple DNA techniques such as mapping and analysis of agronomic QTL, the mapping and cloning of important trait-related genes, construction of genetic linkage map, and prediction of heterosis. Among them, molecular marker-assisted breeding and gene genetic transformation techniques are two of the most basic and most important technologies in the molecular design breeding, which are also key factors to restrict the development of molecular design breeding. With the innovation and breakthrough of both technologies in the further, the development of crop molecular design breeding will be more rapid. In the development of future, molecular design breeding is bound to become an integrated breeding method that would combine multiple disciplines and would be constantly improved. molecular design breeding will in future have a profound influence on the development of theory and technology of crop breeding, and DNA technology is playing an irrepressible role in this process. Problem and prospect. Now, agricultural production has relied on hormones and chemical fertilizers on long term steroids, and especially the abuse of pesticides increase the dosage and residual of pesticides. Pollutions are becoming much severe. The quality of agricultural products continue to decline. Agricultural production is unable to meet the growing demand. With the rapid development of molecular biology today, it is necessary for the scientists to use the technology based on the molecular level to do better on the agricultural industry. DNA techniques can be applied to the analysis of genetic background of crop, germplasm, cultivar identification, crop genetic improvement as well as the analysis of growth state, and has shown very good results. There are a lot of work to be done in some areas such as techniques improvement, utilization of chromosome engineering in the innovation of crop germplasm. Further, increase of crop quality and yields and biosafety prevention is the goal or task that relevant experts pay attention and efforts on. Currently, the world is facing the crisis of soaring population and food shortage. Agriculture production has become a very important issue in the construction of national economy. With the modern DNA technology becomes more and more widely used in agriculture, the current major issues like food, population, pollution, and the other problems that our world facing would get better solution. Therefore, the development of modernization of agriculture based on new DNA technology is an important choice.
Application of polymerase chain reaction on environmental microbiology. PCR methodology for environmental applications. PCR is the in vitro enzymatic amplification of a DNA fragment that is performed by using two flanking oligonucleotide primers at the two ends of the target DNA. The most recent advancement in PCR technology that may be very useful in environmental application is the thermostable DNA polymer. Thermostable DNA polymerase. Native Tech DNA polymerase and recombinant AmpliTech DNA polymerase of Thermus aquaticus are commonly used for DNA amplification by PCR. Recently, several other thermostable DNA polymerases have been introduced, and these may have potential advantages for environmental PCR technology. Another thermostable DNA polymerase isolated from Thermus thermophilus has significant reverse transcriptase activity, especially in the presence of manganese chloride. Thermus thermophilus polymerase can be useful for detecting gene expression and viable but non-culturable microorganisms in the environment samples by using mRNA cDNA PCR amplification in a single reactor. Detection of indigenous microorganisms by PCR. One of the potential ways to eliminate various pollutants and toxic wastes in the environment is efficient biodegradation and bioremediation by various indigenous microorganisms at the polluted sites. Sensitive detection of such degrading microorganisms in the polluted and toxic waste sites may be possible by using PCR. Although there might be variations in the genes of the same or different groups of microorganisms for the degradation of one or several types of pollutants, it may be possible to identify these microorganisms by detecting the conserved regions of these genes by PCR amplification. Identification of microorganisms in biofilms. Formation of biofilms on various surfaces by microorganisms in the environment can be beneficial or detrimental. Characterization and ecology of microbial populations in biofilms has been hindered because of the available determinative techniques require culture of microorganisms in selective media. These methods eliminate many of the important microbes from the biofilms since they survive only in a mixed culture and live on the co-metabolism. Detection of viable but non-culturable microorganisms in the environment. There are several reports on the existence of many microorganisms including human pathogens in the environment in a viable but non-culturable, that is dormant stage. These microbial pathogens are shown to be potentially infectious when suitable conditions prevail. One obvious difficulty in elucidating this potential hazard is the inability to detect these viable but non-culturable cells in the environment because routine microbiological methods will not allow them to grow or will not distinguish them from the dead cells. Recognizing that the terms alive and viable are subject to different definitions, the reasonable acceptable definition would be that the live cells are considered those capable of cell division, metabolism, or gene transcription. To detect those microbial cells that are in a viable but non-culturable state in the environment, it is desirable to target the mRNA rather than the DNA first for cDNA synthesis followed by PCR amplification. The potential problem of this approach is that most of the prokaryotic mRNAs have half-lives of only few minutes. Detection of gene expression in the environment by PCR. An important issue in environmental microbial molecular genetics is how various genes are regulated and expressed under various environmental conditions. One known fact is that some of the environmental microbial pathogens such as L. pneumophila and V. vulnificus altered their gene expression and remain in a dormant stage as non-culturable organisms in the environment. It has also been predicted that several biodegradative microorganisms may not express their degrading genes in the environment. As a result, one may not be sure whether the released GEMs or indigenous microorganisms are degrading the pollutants at a contaminated site.
Nucleic acid extraction from various soils in environment. Effective extraction of nucleic acid from environmental sample is an essential starting point in the molecular analysis of microbial communities in the environment. However, there are many different extraction methods in the environment that has proven very successful at extracting DNA and RNA from a range of different samples. DNA extraction by direct lysis methods. In method 1, 2 gram soil were suspended in 5 milliliter 1% sodium didosyl sulfate solution and incubated at 70 degree Celsius for 1 hour. The pellet was further extracted twice with 6 milliliter 0.12 mole liter per second Na2HPO4 at 70 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. DNA was precipitated with polyethylene glycol 6000 in the presence of 0.5 mole liter per second sodium chloride. Overnight at 4 degrees Celsius, DNA was collected by centrifugation and dissolved in buffer. In method 2, 1 gram soil was washed twice with 2 milliliter sodium phosphate buffer and then suspended in 2 milliliter lysis solution and containing lysozyme and cells were lysed by rapid freezing in the presence of HTS. After phenol chloroform extraction, DNA was precipitated with cold is isopropanol and then dissolved in 100 ml buffer. And DNA was then treated with pancreatic RNase and that had been boiled for 15 minutes. That's final concentration 0.2 gram liter per that was for 2 hours at 37 degrees Celsius. In method 3, 1 gram soil was suspended in 6 milliliter mixing buffer. After mixing, the soil suspension was mixed with 500 mg polyvinyl polypyrrolidone and then treated with 100 ml lysosome. This was followed by the addition of 3.8 milliliter lysis buffer. To lysis the cells, the soil pellet was further extracted twice with 3 milliliter buffer. Potassium acetate was added to the supernatant fluid to a final concentration of 0.5 mole liter per second, and the precipitate was removed by centrifugation after incubation on ice for 2 hours. DNA was precipitated with 95% ethanol and collected by centrifugation. The DNA pellet was dissolved in 1 milliliter buffer containing 10 mole liter per second trace and 1 mole liter per second EDTA. In method 4, 10 gram soil sample and 0.25 gram STS were added to 25 milliliter Na3PO4 solution and incubated at 30 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes with mixing every 5 minutes. Glass beads were then added to the soil suspension and the stopper tubes were placed horizontally on an orbital shaker for 30 minutes at a rate of 100 rev minute per second. Soil cell debris and glass beads were removed by centrifugation. STS in the supernatant fluid was precipitated by incubating on ice and the lysate were cleaned by centrifugation. Calcium chloride was added to the lysate to help precipitate the proteins. In method 5, 50 gram soil sample and 10 gram Chilex 100 were added to 100 milliliter of 0.1% Na-deoxycholate and 2.5% PEG 6000 solution. After shaking at 4 degrees Celsius for 1 hour, soil particles and Chilex 100 were removed by centrifugation and filtration respectively. Cells were collected by centrifugation and washed with a solution containing 20 milliliter test buffer, and they were then collected by centrifugation and suspended in 5.5 milliliter test buffer. In method 6, there 100 gram soil and 20 gram PVPP were suspended in 300 milliliter 0.1 mole liter per second sodium phosphate buffer and homogenized with a Waring blender. After the addition of 2 milliliter 20% STS and shaking by hand, soil particles were removed by centrifugation. Cells were first washed in 200 milliliter 0.1% hexametophosphate, 0.1% sodium pyrophosphate solution. Then in 150 milliliter chrome batch buffer and cells were collected by centrifugation and suspended in 25 milliliter buffer. In method 7, 50 gram soil sample and 10 gram PVPP were added to the solution and homogenized in a varying blender. Soil particles were recovered by low speed centrifugation. The recovered soil was then subjected to the same extraction process 2 more times. Supernatant fluids were combined and cells were collected by centrifugation. Cells were washed and suspended in test buffer, and for DNA isolation the collected cells were subjected to the lysis procedure described by Leben 1994. Sodium chloride and there were added to the cell suspension to a final concentration of 1 mole liter per second and 0.1% respectively. After incubation at room temperature for 10 minutes, cells were collected by centrifugations and cells were then suspended in 3.5 milliliter trace sucrose EDTA solution and treated with 0.5 milliliter lysozyme. After incubation at 37 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes, 0.5 milliliter Pronase E was added and the mixture was incubated at 37 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. The incubation temperature was then increased to 65 degrees Celsius and 0.25 milliliter of 20% Sarcosyl was added. After 10 minutes at 65 degrees Celsius, the mixture was placed on ice overnight. The lysate was cleaned by centrifugation at 4 degrees Celsius for 1 hour at 4000 gram. DNA purification method. After DNA extraction, the samples were subjected to 2 different purification methods: gel filtration using a Cefadex G200 column and calcium chloride ethidium bromide density gradient in ultracentrifugation. In the latter method, crude lysate was added to a CaCl ETBr solution with the refractive index adjusted to 1.3865. The samples were centrifuged in a Beckman NVT65 rotor. The fluorescing region was recovered and the process repeated when DNA was extracted from sandstone shell and slate mixed alluvial soil and Taiwan clay. The second centrifugation process was done in a Beckman TLA 100.4 rotor using a tabletop ultracentrifuge. The fluorescing region was collected and ethidium bromide was removed by extraction with isopropanol. Ethanol precipitation was then used to recover the DNA following purification by gel filtration or CaCl. DNA digestibility by ECOR and in was also tested once again. As before, the purity and the concentration of extract DNA was determined spectrophotometrically. DNA purity and quantification. the A260 and A2080. Ratio of each extract was determined by a spectrophotometric method. A ratio of less than 1.7 indicated protein contamination. The extent of humic acid contamination was determined by measuring the A20-260 A230 ratio. A ratio of less than 2.0 indicated humic acid content. The quantification of DNA extracted from soil was also carried out using a spectrophotometric method. Digestion of soil extracted DNA. Restriction endonuclease ECORI, and they were used to test the digestibility of DNA obtained by all 7 different extraction methods. The digestions were done under conditions specified by the manufacturer. Effects of storage time. Using Olevin's direct lysis method, DNA was extracted from sandstone shell and slate mixed alluvial soil that was either freshly collected or that had been stored at 4 degrees Celsius for 1, 2 or 3 weeks. DNA extracts were subjected to electrophotoresis as described below. Bacterial DNA extraction from sand. In order to investigate the effect that abrasive forces might have on the structure of the DNA during the extraction process itself, there was added to sterile C and extracted by Holvin's direct lysis method, and there was cultured on a triptych soy agar plate at 37 degrees Celsius overnight, and cells were collected using a spatula. After suspension is in sterile distilled water, 1.0 milliliter liquids were added to 10-gram samples of the sea sand. DNA was then extracted and subjected to electrophoresis.
Introduction to nucleic acid in the environment and its application. Methods and application. Presently and in the future, research in environmental microbiology, microbial ecology, social science, and plant pathology will increasingly involve extraction, purification, amplification, detection, and molecular analysis of both deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid from microorganisms, plants, and environmental samples such as soil, water, and sediment. Most of the current research in this field is being conducted by scientists interested in developing and applying rapid, sensitive, and reproducible methods to extract and detect specific nucleic acid sequences in complex environmental samples. Nucleic acid biosensors for environmental pollution monitoring. Nucleic acid based biosensors are finding increasing use for the detection of environmental pollution and toxicity. A biosensor is defined as a compact analytical device incorporating a biological or biologically derived sensing element, either integrated within or intimately associated with a physiochemical transducer. A nucleic acid based biosensor employs as the sensing element an oligonucleotide with a known sequence of bases or a complex structure of DNA or RNA. Nucleic acid biosensors can be used to detect DNA RNA fragments or either biological or chemical species. In the first application, DNA RNA is the analyte and it is detected through the hybridization reaction. In the second application, DNA RNA plays the role of the receptor of specific biological and chemical species such as target proteins, pollutants, or drugs. Nucleic acid based ratiometric electrochemiluminescent, electrochemical, and photoelectrochemical biosensors are review. The demand of precise assay of nucleic acids and other bioanalytes has been increasing enormously in various areas, including point of care diagnostics, military, environmental monitoring, and so on. Compared with other nucleic acid biosensors, the electrochemical nucleic acid biosensors possess a range of merits like amenable miniaturization, low costs, and high sensitivity. Ratiometric electrochemical nucleic acid biosensors can overcome the inherent systematic errors of conventional electrochemical biosensors and enhance the reproducibility and credibility. This short review summarizes the evolvements made in the area of nucleic acid based biosensors based on ratiometric readout in the past few years. Many of the methods discussed here are based on the use of advanced nanomaterials such as quantum dots, graphitic carbon nitrides, graphene oxides, C dots, gold nanoparticles, metal organic frameworks, and respective nanohybrids. Three sections on electrochemiluminescence, classical electrochemical, and emerging photoelectrochemical systems demonstrate the merits of ratiometric assays in various applications. The review ends with a section with conclusions and a discussion of future perspective. Graphical abstract ratiometric sensing strategies overcome the intrinsic systemic errors of conventional electrochemical sensors that suffer from environmental and personal factors and thus leads to remarkably enhanced reproducibility and reliability. Nucleic acids biosensors based on metal organic framework, paving the way to clinical laboratory diagnosis. Development of ultra-sensitive, high-specific and cost-effective nucleic acid biosensors is critical for early diagnosis of cancer, genetic diseases, and follows-up response to treatment. Metal organic frameworks as sensing materials underwent significant development in recent years due to their unique merits such as structural diversity, tunable pore scale, large surface area, remarkable absorption affinities, and good thermal stability. MOFs have shown potential contribution in nucleic acid biosensors research. Herein, a comprehensive overview on NS biosensor state of the art based on MOFs has been discussed extensively, including defined MOFs platform sensing strategies, fluorescence, electrochemistry, and colorimetric techniques, their analytical performance, and figures of merit in clinical diagnostics with a future perspective in introducing MOFs in clinical laboratory diagnostics. Moreover, the defined MOF synthesis methods have been highlighted to serve as a guide for the researchers in selecting the appropriate platform that suits their research needs and applications. Nucleic acid isolation from environmental aqueous samples. The application of molecular techniques has revolutionized freshwater and marine ecology, especially for plankton research. Methods such as denatured gradient gel electrophoresis, temperature gradient gel electrophoresis, and single strand conformation polymorphism, together with environmental clone libraries, have unraveled an unexpected biodiversity of organisms in the water column. Molecular probes are just entering the field of commercialization for monitoring toxic algal blooms. Genomics and metagenomics were recently introduced into marine biology. At the basic of all the molecular approaches is the isolation of nucleic acids from cultures, tissue, or environmental samples. Here we summarize methods, quality controls, and hints for sample treatment to reliably isolate nucleic acids, both DNA and RNA, from environmental aqueous samples. Advantages and limitations of environmental DNA RNA tools for marine biosecurity, management and surveillance of non-indigenous species. To enable successful management of marine bioinvasions, timely and robust scientific advice is required. This knowledge should inform managers and stakeholders on the magnitude of a pressure, the environmental state of an ecosystem, and the success of management response. This advice often relies on baseline biodiversity information in the form of measurable parameters. This can be derived from conventional approaches such as visual surveys, but also by utilizing environmental DNA RNA based molecular techniques. Environmental eRNA advances the reliability of eDNA by predicting its age. DNA RNA based molecular techniques are increasingly being touted as promising tools for assessing biodiversity and detecting rare or invasive species. Environmental DNA, eDNA, analysis has advanced conservation biology and biodiversity management. However, accurate estimation of age and origin of eDNA is complicated by particle transport and the presence of legacy genetic materials which can obscure accurate interpretation of eDNA detection and quantification.
Now, let me discuss about the conclusion of this topic. Nucleic acid isolation may be required from human cells of different types of free circulating nucleic acid. When pathogens are of interest, viruses, bacteria, pathogens, and fungi must be considered. Multiplex testing may depend on simultaneous isolation of nucleic acid from some or all of these sources. Many techniques are available requiring a choice of commercial products or a combination of techniques for any given application. Many nucleic acid preparation kits from companies specialize in making the process as simple as possible. Nucleic acid isolation solutions are constantly improving to meet the complex needs of an evolving diagnostic world. Thank you.